Hey there. For today, I just want to highlight to you how God calls people out of their comfort zones. And I have two stories to contrast with you right now. Both stories involve a Jewish guy who has some kind of ministry gifting. I'm going to call them both prophets, who gets called or sent by God to a town called Joppa. And in Joppa, God tells him, go to these people who are not Jews, who are so different from you, and go serve them. And these two guys, one is Jonah and one is Peter. Now, we probably all know the story of Jonah. You know, Jonah's an Old Testament prophet. God tells him, go to Nineveh, bring my message to them, call them to repentance. And Jonah's like, oh, hell no. I don't like them. I'm not doing that. I don't want them to receive your mercy and forgiveness. So he goes to Joppa and he's like, I'm going to go the opposite direction. Gets on a boat, gets swallowed by a whale, eventually makes it to Nineveh, is very grumpy about it, gives the message and prays that God would call down fire upon them. And instead, God has mercy on them. God forgives them. And his story ends with him pouting with a worm and a dead tree. And that's just the end of the story. And there I want to highlight, God called Jonah to go so far out of his comfort zone. And Jonah's attitude and Jonah's choices of how to react meant that his story ended in such a pathetic way. And yet on the other hand, there's the story of Peter in Acts. Peter is one of the original disciples. This is after Jesus has ascended into heaven. The early church is starting to grow. And Jesus sends, the Spirit of God sends Peter to Joppa and tells him, hey, go knock on this Roman citizen's door. And Peter's like, you say what? If I go in there, I'm going to be unclean by Jewish standards because I'm going to be contaminated by being in a pagan household. I can't go there. What do you mean? But Peter does it. Peter has the humility to step into the unknown in order to grow because he knows somehow God is going to work a miracle through it. And that Roman citizen's house, Cornelius, ends up being a major leader in the growth of the early church. It's one of the miracle stories where the early church realized, wait a second, we're not Jewish anymore. Wait a second, God's people is across any kind of national or ethnic lines. God invites everyone to be part of his community and part of his church. Starts a whole series of events that ends up meaning Jews and Gentiles can live in unity together. And those stories wouldn't be written that way if it wasn't for Peter's willingness to go outside of his comfort zone. And leaving our comfort zones is what encourages us to grow. And even as a therapist, I feel like so often when people and kids and teenagers are coming to me and their parents are describing the challenges that they're having, what I hear is growing pains. That the whole family has been pushed into circumstances that are forcing them to grow. And sometimes the kids don't want to grow. Sometimes the kids are scared. Sometimes they don't know how to take that next step forward. And other times, it's the parents. But in the midst of it, it has been such a gift to be able to watch those families grow and to see how much easier it is to grow when there's somebody else who's willing to walk with you through it. And even today, I would like to ask you, would you grow with me? Because even as I'm looking into 2025 and watching other people grow, I'm asking you if you would invest in this ministry with a year-end gift. Because your generosity and the generosity of other believers is what is enabling me to offer free counseling to the people who need it the most. So I'm grateful for you, grateful for this little moment to share about getting out of your comfort zone, and I'm looking forward to the growth that we can all have in 2025.